It's funny how something that changes your whole life can start so simply. I met Lisa on a Tuesday afternoon at a neighborhood cookout, hosted by one of the clients I was doing work for at the time. I had just finished remodeling their patio, and they insisted I stay for food. Lisa showed up late, holding a bottle of wine and looking like she owned the place, confident but not loud, polished but approachable. She wasn't flashy, just present in a way that drew you in. We got to talking over ribs and cornbread, and by the end of the evening, we were standing off to the side, laughing about something neither of us would remember later. Our first date came 2 weeks later. She chose the spot, a small Thai place tucked into a strip mall, the kind of place you only find through word of mouth. We talked for hours. I remember she asked a lot of questions. Not in a nosy way, just curious. She really listened. I liked that about her from the start. And she had opinions, two sharp ones. She challenged me a bit, kept me on my toes. We moved in together about a year after that. Nothing rushed, but we both knew where it was headed. We got married the following spring, small ceremony, backyard reception, just the way we wanted it. Lisa looked incredible that day. Not just beautiful, but calm. Certain. Like she'd already made peace with all the choices that brought her there. Life settled into a good rhythm after that. I ran a construction crew, residential work mostly, some small commercial gigs. Steady, demanding, but I liked it. Lisa worked part-time at a small retail shop downtown that sold handmade home goods and decor. She liked the creative side of it, helping people put together spaces that felt like home. Her hours were flexible, which she loved. It gave her time to explore new recipes, rearrange the furniture on a whim, or spend lazy mornings on the porch with a cup of tea and a book. Our house wasn't big, but we'd made it ours. She had a knack for turning even plain rooms into cozy spaces. Little details everywhere, fresh flowers, candles, prints from local artists. I handled the yard, the repairs, the grill. She made sure the inside felt lived in and loved. We were a team. Weekends were for grocery runs, movie nights, long drives to nowhere, or working on the house together. Sometimes we'd host friends, fire up the grill, and sit out under the string lights Lisa had hung across the patio. Other times, it was just the two of us, doing a whole lot of nothing and loving every second of it. We had plans. Not all mapped out, but things we talked about when the timing felt right. Maybe a trip to Italy, maybe starting a family, maybe expanding the business. Nothing urgent, just the kind of dreams you keep in your back pocket. And for a long time, I thought we were building something solid. Lisa and I settled into married life like we'd been doing it for years. There weren't grand declarations or constant adventures. It was more about the little things. The kind of routines that form without effort. She'd wake up first most mornings, shuffle around in her slippers and oversized robe, brewing a pot of strong coffee that could wake the dead. I'd hear her humming some song from the kitchen, soft and half asleep, and that was usually my cue to start the day. I worked long hours with my crew, especially during the busy months. Construction isn't kind to those who slack off, but I took pride in what I did. I was hands-on, always on-site, always checking that things were being done right. Lisa used to tease me about how much I micromanaged, but I think she respected it too. She'd send me texts during the day, pictures of a meal she tried, an article she thought I'd like, or just miss you in the middle of a chaotic workday. They always landed at the right moment. Evenings were slower, cozier. We usually made dinner together unless one of us had a crazy day. Lisa loved trying new recipes, and I wasn't much of a cook, but I'd chop vegetables or man the grill if it meant spending time with her. After dinner, we'd clean up together and either watch something on Netflix or just sit outside if the weather was nice. Those evenings on the porch, wine in hand, legs kicked up, were some of the most peaceful moments I can remember. She had this way of making a place feel like a home. Not just physically, but emotionally. Our house was always full of life. Candles burning in the evenings, music playing on lazy Saturdays, seasonal decor that seemed to change like clockwork. I used to joke that she had a sixth sense for cozy. She liked things to feel warm and alive. We talked about everything, or at least, it felt that way. Not every second was deep, but we were connected. We laughed a lot at dumb jokes, random memes, or old stories we'd retell like they'd just happened. She liked hearing about my crew and the weird things that happened on job sites. I liked hearing her opinion on books I hadn't read or clients she helped at the shop who came in needing more than just a throw pillow. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was solid. I came home to someone who knew me, who made space for me, and I did the same for her. Looking back, those days felt so steady, so rooted. I never once questioned whether we were on the same page. Why would I? Everything looked exactly the way I thought a happy marriage was supposed to. Sundays were our thing. No alarms, no plans unless we made them together the night before. Lisa would usually head out early to the farmer's market while I stayed in, fixing up odds and ends around the house, little repairs, a door that squeaked, a shelf she wanted to move. She'd come home with fresh flowers, bread, maybe a wedge of some cheese she'd found and couldn't pronounce. She'd talk me into trying something new every week. We had our habits, our shows, our favorite diner with the painfully slow service but the best blueberry pancakes, our yearly tradition of driving upstate in the fall just to look at leaves and pretend we knew something about wine at the local vineyards. We never had to make a big deal out of anything. Lisa would throw on a scarf, I'd grab coffee for the road, and off we'd go. We weren't flashy. We didn't post much on social media. We both agreed that our life felt better without needing to show it off. Sure, we took photos, goofy selfies, blurry shots of each other mid-laugh, the occasional sunset. But they stayed on our phones or framed in the hallway. Our life was for us, not for show. Lisa had friends she saw occasionally, and I encouraged it. I liked that she had her own world, people she could talk to about things I probably wouldn't understand. They'd come over sometimes, drink wine, talk loudly over each other in the living room while I hung back in the kitchen or stepped outside to give them space. Lisa always thanked me afterward, like she knew I was giving her room to breathe. It never felt like a sacrifice, just part of being her partner. She made me feel appreciated in ways that didn't need grand gestures. A hand on my back when I walked by, a quick kiss when I was making coffee, a note in my lunchbox that just said, "Kill it today." I never had to ask if she loved me, I just knew. It was in the way she folded my work shirts without me asking, in the way she listened, really listened, even when I didn't realize I needed to talk. Our friends would sometimes say we made marriage look easy. I never really thought about it that way. To me, it wasn't about easy or hard. It was just about showing up. Every day. Even when you're tired. Even when you've said the same things 100 times. It was showing up with honesty, with consistency, with care. And Lisa did that. Or at least, I believed she did. That's what made everything else so hard to see coming. It started with something simple. Lisa asked if I'd be okay with her going on a trip with her friends. A girl's getaway, she called it. Nothing major, just 4 days out by the coast, some small-town beach town she'd been wanting to visit for a while. She said one of her friends had found a great Airbnb and the group was pitching in. I didn't think twice about it. She worked hard. She deserved a break. She'd never asked for much, not in the way of shopping or expensive things. Her splurges were more about candles and cookbooks than designer bags. So when she said she needed a few hundred for the trip, travel, food, her share of the rental, I just nodded and transferred the money. "It'll be good for you," I said. "You haven't had a real break in a while." She smiled and kissed my cheek, said, "Thank you for understanding." And that was that. I helped her pack. She was in a good mood, upbeat, more animated than usual. She'd laid out swimsuits and sundresses on the bed, buzzing with that kind of pre-trip energy I always loved about her. She said they were planning to do nothing but drink wine, sit by the water, and complain about their husbands in the most loving way possible. We laughed. I helped her load her bag into the car. She hugged me tightly, longer than usual. I told her to have fun, drive safe, and text me when she got there. She promised she would. And she did, at first. A quick text when they arrived made it. "This place is perfect." Then a picture of the ocean. Then radio silence for the rest of the night. I didn't think anything of it. I figured she was unwinding, maybe catching up with her friends over a bottle of wine. I went about my evening, watched a movie, fell asleep on the couch. The next morning, she sent another photo, breakfast on the porch, feet up, sun already shining. She looked relaxed. Happy. It made me smile. I texted back, "Looks like paradise." She replied with a heart emoji. I didn't realize it at the time, but that weekend would be the last time I looked at her through completely trusting eyes. Not because anything was obvious. Not because I had a reason to worry. Just something about the way she left. The way she seemed a little too ready to escape. Lisa came back from the trip a few days later, looking sun-kissed and relaxed. She unpacked the car with that same easy energy she'd left with, talked about seafood restaurants, long walks on the beach, how one of her friends got a ridiculous sunburn. Everything seemed normal. Almost too normal. She smiled, told me she missed me, even brought back a mug from a local shop that said, "Wish you were beer." It made me laugh. We sat on the porch that night, just like always, and she poured us each a drink. Talked about wanting to go again someday. I nodded, glad she'd enjoyed it. But after a day or two, I started noticing things. Small things. She was on her phone more often. That wasn't necessarily weird. Lisa had always been someone who kept up with her friends, especially the group she traveled with, but now it felt different. She'd get a message, glance at it, and flip her phone face down. Not once or twice. Every time. She also started taking her phone with her everywhere. Bathroom, laundry room, even out to the mailbox. I used to joke that she couldn't be without it for more than 5 minutes, but now the joke didn't land. She didn't laugh. She'd just shrug and say, "It's nothing." Maybe it was nothing. But I started wondering what nothing looked like when you were trying to hide something. Her sleep changed, too. Lisa had always been a night owl, but she started staying up even later, sometimes past midnight. I'd wake up and find her in the living room, curled up with a blanket and her phone, the TV barely audible in the background. I'd ask if she was coming to bed, and she'd wave me off, say she just needed to unwind. I didn't press. I didn't want to be that husband, the paranoid one. Still, the distance between us started to feel less like a phase and more like a wall. And I couldn't help but wonder when exactly that wall started going up. We weren't fighting. Not really. But our conversations had thinned out. There were fewer shared laughs, fewer long looks across the dinner table. More nights where I'd be talking, and she'd seem miles away. It wasn't anything I could put into words. Not yet. But the house didn't feel the same. And neither did she. There's a particular kind of silence that starts to fill a house, not the peaceful kind, but the charged kind. The kind that feels like it's pressing on your chest even when no one's arguing. That's what our home started to feel like. Lisa and I still did the normal things, ate meals together, watched a few shows here and there, even had friends over once or twice, but something underneath all of it had changed. The words were still there, but the meaning had drained out of them. I'd come home from a long day at the site, tired, covered in drywall dust or paint, and find her already changed, makeup fresh, hair done like she was about to head out again. She'd give me a quick hello, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, and tell me she had dinner plans with a friend or a last-minute work event she couldn't skip. I never wanted to be the guy who questioned his wife every time she left the house. I respected her independence, always had, but I couldn't shake the feeling that these outings weren't just what she said they were. It was the way she moved around me that struck me most. Like she was always half a step ahead or a few seconds late to every shared moment. She'd brush past me in the kitchen, not quite making eye contact. Her answers to simple questions were clipped, like she didn't want to engage but couldn't be openly cold without tipping her hand. She'd still say, "I love you," when leaving the house, but it came out fast, almost routine, like she was checking off a box. That warmth, the quiet intimacy we'd built over years, was missing. And the worst part was, she didn't seem to notice it was gone. I started staying later at work. Not because I had to, but because the job site felt more familiar, more honest. Out there, everything made sense. Measurements, deadlines, materials, they didn't lie. If something was broken, you fixed it. If something was out of place, you moved it. At home, everything looked fine, but felt off in a way I couldn't adjust for. I'd walk into a room and feel like I was interrupting something, even if Lisa was just scrolling through her phone or flipping through a magazine. Her whole energy had shifted. There was a nervousness under the surface, like she was waiting for something, bracing for something, and I didn't know what. There was one night that stuck with me. She was sitting on the couch, legs curled up under her, staring at her phone with a look that was. I don't even know how to describe it. Not joy. Not amusement. Something more like longing. I asked what she was reading. She looked up, startled, and said, "Oh, nothing. Just a text from Kelly. She's being ridiculous." Then she turned the screen away and forced a laugh. I smiled, nodded, but something in me dropped. It wasn't the lie that hurt. It was how quickly it came. I didn't push her. I told myself it was just a rough patch. Stress. Maybe she was just distracted. But I couldn't shake the quiet voice inside me that had started whispering things I didn't want to hear. By the end of that month, Lisa and I felt like two people coexisting under a shared roof, not partners. We still did things together, on paper. We shared meals, talked logistics, handled bills. But the spirit of our marriage, that thread of connection that used to weave through the quiet moments, was gone. I'd find myself watching her when she wasn't looking, trying to spot something familiar in her posture, her face, her voice. It's a strange, gutting thing to feel homesick for someone who's sitting 3 feet away from you. She still went out, maybe more now than before. She always had names and places: dinner with Julie, drinks with Mia, running errands, staying late at the shop to close inventory. It all sounded fine, but it started stacking up in ways that didn't sit right. Days she wouldn't get home until well past midnight. Times when she wouldn't answer her phone, only to text hours later with some vague explanation. Sorry, didn't hear it buzz. Or, dead battery, just got back to the car. Things like that. Little excuses that didn't feel like lies on their own, but started to feel rehearsed when lined up next to each other. I didn't accuse her. I didn't even bring it up. I just started pulling back a little, watching instead of asking, listening to the tone of her voice more than the words she said. I told myself I needed space to clear my head, to figure out if maybe I was just being insecure. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe she was just in a phase. Maybe we both were. There was a night that summed it all up. I was making dinner, nothing fancy, just grilled chicken and roasted potatoes, something she used to request when she had a rough day. She walked in the door around 7, barely glanced at the stove, said, "I already ate," and disappeared upstairs. No explanation. No thanks. No apology. Just gone. I stood there for a while, staring at the 2 plates I'd set, still warm from the oven. That moment sat in my chest like a stone. It wasn't about the food. It was about how far we'd drifted, how invisible I'd started to feel. And still, I said nothing. I cleaned up, watched TV alone, and went to bed without saying goodnight. She didn't come to bed until hours later. I heard the door open and close, heard the quiet rustle of her moving through the room in the dark. I didn't turn to look. I just closed my eyes and pretended to be asleep. Because sometimes pretending is easier than asking the question you already know the answer to. She didn't come home that night. At first, I thought maybe she was staying with one of her friends again, something she'd done once or twice in the past month, claiming they had wine and fell asleep talking. It had started to feel normal, or at least something I trained myself not to question. I didn't call, didn't text, just sat on the couch with the TV playing something I wasn't watching, the sound of the clock louder than anything else in the room. I went to bed alone again. The house felt even emptier than usual. I don't know if I actually slept, or just laid there with my eyes closed, mind spinning with everything I wasn't willing to admit to myself. At some point, I drifted off. When I woke up the next morning, the sun was already up, and she still wasn't home. I checked my phone. No missed calls. No texts. Just one unread message from Lisa. It came in around 6:47 a.m. It was short, blunt, like a slap. Don't bother waiting for me. I'm not coming back. You're a loser. I've been cheating on you for a long time. I'm going to the house this afternoon to get my things. I'm moving in with someone who actually makes me feel alive. I read it twice, then a third time. At first, I felt nothing. My brain didn't know where to go. Then it hit me like a freight train. Every suspicion, every moment of distance, every lie dressed up as casual explanation, it was all true. Not just a suspicion, not just a quiet gut feeling. The truth, in her own words, typed out like it meant nothing. I sat there, phone in hand, not moving. And then I got angry. Not the kind of anger that explodes. The kind that settles deep into your bones. The kind that pulls you upright and pushes you to act. She wasn't even going to face me. Just collect her things like she was picking up laundry and move on with her life. And worse, she called me a loser. After everything we'd built, everything I gave, everything I was, she reduced me to that. Like I was some obstacle she'd finally brushed aside. By noon, I had already called the locksmith. If she thought she could just stroll in, take what she wanted, and walk out untouched, she had no idea who she was dealing with anymore. By the time Lisa pulled up to the house, everything had changed. I was standing in the living room, calm in a way that surprised even me. Not shaking, not pacing, just still. The new locks had been installed an hour before. Her key wouldn't work. And when she tried it, after knocking once, then again, louder, there was a beat of silence between us that felt like the final note of a song that had dragged on too long. She shouted through the door, said she just wanted to get her things, that I needed to stop being dramatic. I didn't respond. I just stood on the other side, listening. The longer she talked, the more obvious it became that she didn't think I'd actually follow through. She thought I'd let her in, let her gather her stuff, maybe even beg her to explain. That's the version she was banking on. But I wasn't that man anymore. I had already bagged her belongings, clothes, makeup, toiletries, a few framed photos she kept in her vanity. I set them outside by the garage. Everything else, I didn't care. If she wanted the rest, she could send someone else. As far as I was concerned, she didn't live here anymore. What I hadn't done yet, But what I did that same day was figure out who her so-called someone who makes me feel alive actually was. I wasn't even looking for him. But the answer came to me through a buddy on the crew, someone I trusted. Pulled me aside, hesitating, and said he didn't know if he should even be telling me. But he'd seen something. Heard Lisa's name mentioned during a job last month, in a way that didn't sit right. Turns out, it was one of my own guys. Jason, 28. Worked for me for 3 years. Quiet, dependable, decent with a nail gun. Apparently not so decent behind my back. The betrayal cut deeper than I expected. It wasn't just Lisa. It was someone I had hired, paid, mentored. Someone who'd been in my truck, who ate lunch across from me, who nodded when I talked about loyalty and pride in your work. He was sleeping with my wife while cashing my checks. I didn't yell. Didn't give him the dignity of a confrontation. I just walked into the site the next morning and told him to hand over his badge and tools. You're done, I said. Find your own ride home. He didn't argue. That told me everything. Lisa tried to reach out again. Called from another number. Left a voicemail where she sounded more irritated than remorseful. Said I was overreacting. That I was making things harder than they needed to be. I blocked the number. Then the next one. And the next. She wanted control. She wanted to dictate the terms of her exit, how much she took, what I was allowed to feel, when I was supposed to forgive. She got none of that. What she got was silence. And a door she would never walk through again. The first week after I shut the door on Lisa, I felt everything at once. Anger, grief, disbelief, even relief. But mostly, I just felt tired. Tired in a way I didn't know you could be. The kind that doesn't come from working too many hours, but from carrying too much silence. It wasn't just her betrayal. It was the weight of years spent giving and giving, without ever realizing how little was being given back. But then something started to shift. I cleaned the house top to bottom. Not just wiped surfaces, cleaned. Emptied drawers, boxed up memories, tossed out the things that no longer belonged. I repainted the bedroom walls. Bought new sheets. Rearranged the furniture. It wasn't about spite. It was about reclaiming the space. Making it mine again. Every room started to feel like a reset. Every item I moved was a quiet reminder. I was no longer sharing my life with someone who had already left it. Work kept me grounded. I dove into projects with a new kind of focus. Not to distract myself, but to rebuild something I could control. My crew noticed. Some asked questions, most didn't. But the support was there in the unspoken ways. Extra effort on site. Quiet solidarity from guys who'd seen too much of life themselves to need an explanation. And then there was Erin. She was a supplier rep I'd worked with a few times over the years. Sharp, kind, no nonsense. The kind of woman who looked you in the eye and actually listened. We bumped into each other one afternoon at a building expo. Talked for a while. Nothing heavy, just two people catching up. Then she asked if I wanted to grab coffee sometime. I almost said no. Not because I didn't want to, but because I wasn't sure I remembered how to do this. How to trust again. How to sit across from someone and not carry the weight of everything I'd just been through. But I said yes, and I'm glad I did. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into conversations that went far beyond the surface. Erin didn't push. She didn't ask for the story unless I offered it. And when I did, she didn't flinch. She just nodded and said, "You didn't deserve that. But I'm glad you found your way out." There was no pressure. No games. Just warmth. Steadiness. And after everything, that was what I needed most. It's strange how something that once consumed your entire world can eventually become just a chapter in your story. I think about Lisa sometimes, not often, and never with longing. More like glancing at a scar you didn't realize had fully healed. The kind of wound that teaches you more than the pain ever could. She tried reaching out a few more times. Letters, emails, messages from unknown numbers. I didn't respond. Not once. Not because I was trying to be cruel, but because I had nothing left to say. Everything that needed to be said was already done the moment she left. And the moment I let her stay gone. Last I heard, through someone who still talks to someone who still talks to her, she and Jason didn't last. Big surprise. It turns out when the foundation is built on lies, the whole structure collapses pretty fast. I didn't feel satisfaction hearing that. Just confirmation. That walking away was the best thing I could have done for both of us. My life now? It's simple. Good. Erin and I are taking it slow. No grand declarations, no rush to label anything. Just honesty. We spend weekends hiking, or working on the house together, or sitting on the porch with coffee and no words at all. She's the kind of presence that doesn't demand attention, but makes everything better just by being near. There are still moments when the past creeps in, when I remember a laugh, a scent, or a phrase Lisa used to say. But it doesn't hurt anymore. It just passes. Like a breeze through an open window. It came, and now it's gone. What I've learned is this: the strongest thing you can do isn't to shout, or fight, or beg someone to stay. It's to quietly let them go. To accept that some people will never value what you give. And to choose yourself anyway. Because in the end, peace isn't something someone else can give you. It's what you build from the pieces they tried to break. And I've never been more whole.